Testing 1, 2, 3. Yep. Welcome to Municipal Affairs. Last month, municipal leaders from across Atlantic Canada, including mayors, deputy mayors, wardens, and much more, convened in St. John, New Brunswick for the Atlantic Mayors Congress. Against a backdrop of growing cross-border trade tensions between Canada and the United States, this year's theme was clear: collaboration. From large urban centers to small rural communities, leaders came together to confront shared challenges, explore common ground, and chart a course forward for their respective municipalities. Now, we were on the ground at this year's Congress, speaking with New Brunswick municipal leaders at the heart of local governance, asking why they came, what they hope to achieve, and what collaboration truly means in today's municipal landscape. Now, we caught up with Deputy Mayor Jocelyn Pike of Fredericton about attending this year's Congress in St. John.
Deputy Mayor, thank you so much for chatting with me. We are here on day 2 of the Atlantic Mayors Congress here in beautiful St. John, New Brunswick.
Foggy St. John, New Brunswick.
St.
Yes.
John, New Brunswick, you're right. From your perspective as the representative from Fredericton, what's it like to meet with mayors and councillors and CAOs from across the Atlantic regions the last few days?
You know, it's very beneficial. And the whole theme of collaboration. And I listen with interest how it's going with economic development. I'm very interested in when we start maybe having a little bit of discussion on recreation, because as you know, Fredericton is looking at a pool, and we have rec service agreements, and so there's all kinds of people to talk to here to get information on strategies going forward, how to approach. So.
Are you hearing the same concerns that you're dealing with at your council table around the networking sessions, whether you're talking with someone from Nova Scotia or Newfoundland and Labrador? Are they the same issues, or is there unique issues that are specific to Fredericton?
You know, they're pretty much the same issues. I think, I would like to say that I think Fredericton might have a little bit of a leg up on the homelessness issue now because of our Community Safety Services Task Force and getting those 47 recommendations. I'm sharing that with the folks here and what we've learned. So yeah, I think I don't think you can come to one of these sessions and not go back home having learned a whole lot, and then you go and you sit in the CAO's office and say, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with this? So he'll be really happy when I get home.
So that was the next question: is what do you do with the information you've gleaned today? Is it a report that you give to your CAO? Does it sit on a shelf somewhere?
Oh, no,
How do you
no,
ensure
no.
that what you get here goes back and gets put into use?
It's very much, I've been actually in communication constantly with the CAO whenever we have things that come up, like the discussion on the forever chemicals at airports. Well, Fredericton just got amalgamated with the airport, so that's something we're going to need to look into. So it's great information, but as you say, it can't just sit on a shelf. It has to go back to the mayor and council. The mayor, unfortunately, couldn't attend, or she would be here, but so I get to share with everybody. So we have a council Monday night. I'll give a little bit of a brief update, and then the CAO and I will sit down and go through bit by bit.
Last question, and it's about the theme of this year's convention, and that is collaboration.
Yeah.
What does collaboration mean to the city of Fredericton?
Well, it's the only way to get things done, right? It's the only way to get things done. We can't do it all on our own. And for too long, in my opinion, everything's been downloaded to the municipalities to do, and it has to stop, and we have to do it together. There has to be recognition, and I think there is now, that this is a team approach and a team effort, and we all own a part of it.
Awesome. Deputy Mayor, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Now, on the third day of the convention, we spoke with Miramichi Mayor Lordon about his attendance and how his community is working towards more collaboration from a municipal perspective.
Mayor Lordon, thank you so much for chatting with me. We're here at the second day of the Atlantic Mayors Congress. What brings the mayor of Miramichi, New Brunswick, to beautiful St. John's for this Congress?
Well, you know, I've been attending the Atlantic Mayors Congress now for a number of years since I first was elected. And in particular, when I was first elected, these things are always so important, but especially when you're beginning to establish the networking, often the formal sessions are very informative, but the informal networking and chance to sort of share stories and experiences and learn from your colleagues and peers in the informal settings are just as important. So love to come to them, and you're always going to learn something, and there's never any shortage of challenges or topics that you might want to get some thoughts and advice on.
What are you hearing at this year's Congress that you can take back and utilize in Miramichi? Because you can't just come to these conferences and let the information sit on a shelf or sit in your brain somewhere. How do you make the work that happens here work for Miramichi?
That's right. Well, I think my approach is always I often will come in with a number of things that I'm looking to get some information on or try to move the needle on in terms of joint advocacy, provincially and federally. A lot of what we have to deal with is we have to try to convince them to do things, whether they want to do them or not sometimes. Today really we just had a great session from Colliers on project management tips on trying to tighten those things up and stretch every dollar. A great session with David Campbell on Atlantic economy. For me, one of the pain points in my community, I spoke to David about it in the session, is the federal changes to immigration. And, I understand that was necessary in some of the bigger communities and cities across the country, but in rural communities like Miramichi and many others who are here, it's really adversely impacting we've had some good progress in population increases, and this is really going to wipe a lot of that away. A lot of the business owners in my community are very concerned. So, trying to advance some advocacy to hopefully get a carve out or reversing that for rural communities is top of my list for sure. Just also learning this morning from our new world in New Brunswick of municipal reform and sharing economic development responsibilities. Great session there on how do we work together as neighboring communities and through the RSC and make sure we're not duplicating efforts too, because I always say there's no shortage of things to do, so let's not duplicate, let's work together, collaborate and do as much as we can.
So I just want to pick up on that word because collaboration is the key theme of this year's event of the Atlantic Mayors Congress. What does collaboration mean at the end of the day for a council of Miramichi or for the town of Miramichi or for the mayor of Miramichi?
Yeah. Well, I think you learn, if you're doing it right, you learn in these positions very early on that you're not going to do very much at all alone. So everything we do in government at the municipal level or any level requires collaboration. You need collaboration from your own council to get those decisions to yes. You need collaboration from your staff to actually go and do the work and match the vision of the council. You need collaboration with the provincial and federal governments, either on policy or certainly on infrastructure funding or other funding opportunities. And you need collaboration with your neighboring communities or across the province or in this case across Atlantic Canada. So everything we do requires collaboration, and so to me it's actually one of the most crucial necessary pieces of doing these jobs, and so we've got to always be looking for those opportunities.
What they're talking about here today and for the last few days, do you find them similar what's going on in Miramichi? Because we talked about housing on day one during the mayor's sort of roundtable discussion. We talked about incivility tomorrow. We're talking about collaboration. Are these the issues that are prevalent to you and keep you up at night?
They absolutely are. I think you learn that too, and we're not that far, just a couple of weeks removed from our annual national municipal conference, the FCM, that was this year, I think, back in Ottawa too, yep. Right? But we all have the same challenges and relatively speaking, a lot of the same opportunities. It's just a matter of scale. So, housing has been on the forefront for a number of years now. I'm really proud, by the way, of the work and progress we have in Miramichi. We're actually almost double the national average in terms of building new units per capita. So humble brag there. But absolutely, we're always trying to share whatever we have done well and we have success. I want to share that, and I want to learn from others in those areas who are having success too that I can learn from.
Well, Mayor Lordon, thank you so much for doing this. Greatly appreciate it.
Likewise, thank you.
Attending the convention on behalf of the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick was St. Stephen Councillor Wade Greelaw. We spoke with Councillor Greelaw about his attendance and what collaboration means to his community and to the UMNB.
We are here at the second day of the Atlantic Mayors Congress in beautiful downtown St. John, New Brunswick, or I should say foggy, but I think it's clearing up as we're talking right now. What brings you here as a councillor, but also in your role as Vice President of UMNB?
Well, right now I'm actually substituting in for the President of UMNB, who couldn't be here. So they asked me to come and cover and make sure that I bring information back to the executive and to the board of directors.
And what are you hearing this week?
I'm hearing all kinds of good stuff. Well, I hear common issues, but I also hear a lot of solutions and a lot of good information. Mr. Campbell this morning talked about how we can make our communities better and some of the things that we need to think about. And just some of the offline conversations with some of the other mayors. There's mayors from all over. When you're talking to somebody from St. John's or from Charlottetown or parts of Nova Scotia, we're hearing all the same issues, but some of them have got some pretty good solutions. And if we can all get together and do the same thing in New Brunswick that some of the other provinces is, like the big theme here is collaboration. And from an economic development standpoint and from economy of scale standpoint. And we've done some of that in our area, and we're trying to do more. But the economic development collaboration on a regional basis is something that I've been pushing for the last couple of years, and I think it really will help us start to move.
So in the context of first as councillor and then as vice president of UMNB, what does collaboration mean to your municipality? What does collaboration mean to the organization, to the union?
Well, collaboration to the municipality means that we have to look at our neighboring communities, our neighboring municipalities. Like St. Stephen has Eastern Charlotte, and it has St. Andrews very close. So there's got to be economies of scale in operations, in equipment and capital projects. We need to start looking at that when it comes to developing tourism, economic development projects. We have to look as a region and say, a win for St. Andrews is a win for St. Stephen. A win for Eastern Charlotte is a win for St. Stephen, and vice versa. So it doesn't matter where it goes. We're close enough. If it's in our region, it's going to benefit the whole region. Like Macadam, for instance, there's some great things that are going to happen in the village of Macadam. It's only 35 minutes from St. Stephen, and if that happens, St. Stephen benefits from it. So we all need to support each other at the Regional Service Commission and on a regional basis for projects and stop working in silos and trying to bring specific things in individually. If we collaborate, if we go to large corporations, if we go to the government as a region, we carry a lot bigger stick, and I think we'll get a lot better results.
Before I let you get back in there, I have one last question. What do you do with the information you've gathered here today and yesterday and tomorrow that you can take back to your community, take back to the union? Because the information can't just sit on a shelf somewhere, it can't just sit in your head somewhere.
No.
How do you make sure that the best practices win and you bring them forward to make sure that they're utilized?
Yeah. So one, I take crazy notes and lots of pictures, and I'll do a report up, and I'll give a report to the council. I'll also give a report to the UMNB board of directors, and because I also work now for an economic development company called Synergy, a lot of this stuff lines right up with what we're talking about the regional collaboration. So a lot of that information will go back to the board of directors there as well.
Councillor, Vice President, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks very much. Glad to have you here.
With Mayor Donna Reardon of St. John in Miami for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities delegation to the U.S. Mayors Conference, we spoke with St. John Deputy Mayor John MacKenzie about the convention being in his community and what he's hearing from municipal leaders from across Atlantic Canada.
Deputy Mayor, thank you so much for chatting with me.
My pleasure.
You have about 50 delegates from across Atlantic Canada in your hometown right now. What's that like to have people from across Atlantic Canada experiencing what St. John has to offer?
Well, it's exciting, and it's an honor to have everybody here. It's a nice opportunity to show the rest of Atlantic Canada as mayors what we have to offer here in St. John.
One of the big themes of this year's convention of the Atlantic Mayors Congress is collaboration. What does collaboration mean to the City of St. John?
It's huge for the City of St. John because without collaboration, you can't be competitive on the global market. As small entities, one-to-one, it doesn't work. We need collaboration. We need to be a big, solid unit to be competitive with other big, solid units. And I think that we're learning that very quickly, and I think we're doing a good job at it.
Is there a way that you can collaborate with other municipalities across New Brunswick or even through Atlantic Canada? Because I'm assuming the issues that you're hearing around the table or through the networking sessions are the same that you're dealing with here in St. John, that they are in Newfoundland and Labrador, in Peterborough and Edward Island. Is there a way that you can collaborate, or are you trying to stick closely to home and collaborate with the local businesses first?
Oh no, a good example of that is the Canada Games for 2029. You know, St. John's collaborating with Moncton, and together we're going to bring them here to New Brunswick. You know, and any one city couldn't do that. You know, it wouldn't work out as well. So it's more effective and competitive.
You are here on behalf of your mayor, who's currently in Florida at for an FCM convention. You're sort of representing St. John on a national or a regional stage. What are you hoping to hear from Mayor Reardon once she gets back about what she heard in Tampa, if I believe it is? Are you hoping that she'll have some good news about the tariffs, even though she's meeting with mayors, or what are you hopeful for?
Yeah, I've been in touch with the mayor, and there are actually 2 Canadian mayors down there for the United States Mayors Conference, and it's similar to FCM, although we get 15 to 1,800 delegates, they get 15 to 18,000 delegates. The reception is good. And it seems that for the most part, the mayors in the United States are supportive of Canada and not so much of tariffs.
Awesome. Deputy Mayor, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
You're welcome.
And finally, we spoke with the executive director of the Atlantic Mayors Congress, Craig Pollett, about this year's gathering and his thoughts on the 3-day Congress.
Craig, thank you so much for chatting with me. We're on our final day of the Atlantic Mayors Congress, and people are starting to head home. You got a few sessions left. Overall, as executive director, what's your feeling like after the last 3 days?
I'm delighted. Everything, I mean, from an organizer's point of view, you worry about, is everything going to go well on the venue? You know, is food going to show up on time? Is the food going to be good? And you worry about the agenda. Will they engage with the agenda? And we've hit it out of the park. Well, I didn't, but the speakers were fantastic. The conversations, the engagement with the speakers, the conversations after the sessions has all been fantastic. The venue, the St. John Trade and Convention Center, has been excellent. Great room, great staff, great food. So the vibe has been really, really, really solid. I think everybody's enjoying themselves. And, you know, we had this theme of collaboration that we sort of wove through the agenda. And I didn't hit people over the head with it, but they sort of got it, I think. I'm really happy about that.
So what are you hoping that the delegates take away and when they start heading back to their own communities later on this afternoon, what are you hoping that their key takeaway from this year's convention is? Or this spring or summer convention?
Summer, whatever. Yeah. Well, in Atlantic Canada, June can be any of the above.
After the last few days of...
It could be fall. It could be the fall. I think the key takeaway is, well, I always want them to hear something, maybe not about a topic they don't know about, but maybe new information about that topic. So there's really good conversations yesterday about U.S. trade, about economic development in general, and I think they learned some things that maybe they didn't know that'll help them when they get home. The big thing I'm hoping they take away is that we really are at a point in time when collaboration is sort of a must-do now, and that there are ways to do it. And maybe the political barriers to collaboration between municipalities are starting to erode or need to be eroded, because we really are in a different world, economically, socially, in terms of governance, geopolitical stuff going on. So I hope that's the key takeaway most of them have, that when they get back to their office, that they're thinking more broadly about how they can work with their neighbors.
Over the last few days, I've been asking a simple question to each of the people I've been chatting with, and I'm going to ask the very simple question to you as well. What does collaboration mean in the context of the Atlantic Mayors Congress?
In the context of Atlantic Mayors Congress, it means, to be honest, my perspective on it is...
As the executive director.
As the executive director, it's the reason we exist, right? I see the Atlantic Mayors Congress as the venue for collaboration. So if we can spark those kinds of discussions between municipalities, if we can spark that kind of discussion between, we had the provincial territorial associations here yesterday, all of the municipal associations in the region, 4 of them. If we can be the place where those kinds of conversations start happening and that kind of collaboration starts happening, then that's sort of why we exist, I think. There is no Atlantic regional entity for municipalities. There's no other meeting in Atlantic Canada for municipal folks. We're it. So if we can play that role and bring them together, and when they leave here, if a couple of them are walking out the door talking to each other about how they can work together next month, next year, then our job is done.
Awesome. Craig, always a pleasure.
Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversations and gained some valuable insights from the Atlantic region of Canada when it comes to municipal issues. We also want to take a moment and thank the Atlantic Mayors Congress for inviting us and having us at this year's Congress in beautiful St. John, New Brunswick. To stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube and follow us on social media. To learn more about the communities and the people we feature on this show and our sister shows, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Now, your support means the world to us, so share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs shortly.